Now, let's say you want your agent to do something, but unfortunately, an existing tool for that doesn't exist in the marketplace. So if you go to the marketplace, for example, there's not a tool to do the thing you want to do. In this case, maybe it's get the most recent price of Bitcoin. Unfortunately, there's no tool for that. What is fortunate though is that there is an API that you can connect to that gets you the most recent price of Bitcoin, right? So the key thing here is if an action or if a tool doesn't exist in the marketplace, then you can just build your own as long as there exists an API for that action. Now, again, I will say 95% of things online have an API. There's an API that you can use to connect your email to send emails and receive emails. There's an API that connects to OneDrive that connects to Excel files and Word files. There's an API that can connect to websites to provide you housing information and price information. And in this case, there's also an API that you can connect to basically get information related to Bitcoin prices and things like that. And how the particular API works is the actual route of the API looks something like this. But then in order to actually use the API, you need to specify what cryptocurrency you want, and you need to specify what not only cryptocurrency, but what your base currency is as well. Okay, so let me try to find the exact thing here. Yeah, perfect. Here it is. So if I go over here and go to this URL, price ID is equal to Bitcoin, currency is equal to USD. So now this gives me the Bitcoin price in USD. I can change this to Ethereum. And now I get the Ethereum price in USD. I think I can change this to CAD. And it gives me the Ethereum price in CAD. Okay. Should have zoomed in there. So yeah, Bitcoin. This is my CAD Bitcoin price. This is the USD Bitcoin price, and so on and so forth. So this is a great API. And most APIs you need to sign up for and get an API key and get an authorization key. The nice thing about this API is that it's completely free. You don't need to sign up for anything. It's just always available to you, which is fantastic. Okay. So now let's turn this API into a tool that we can use in this platform. Okay. Number one, you need to create the custom tool. All right. Now that we have our API, we go over here and go to tools, click custom, and then this is one I've already created, but let's create another one. Click create custom tool. All right. We'll enter in the tool name, which will be called, in this case, crypto receiver. All right. And then we need to define a schema. Okay. A schema is a way to tell the agent how to interact with the API that we found here. So we need some way to tell the agent in a structured way that, for example, this is the API route. You then have two parameters. You have the ID, which should be Bitcoin, Ethereum, something like that. And you need a versus currencies, which should be USD, CAD, or something like that. And then we also need to tell the agent that this is the type of output that you should expect. Okay? All that information is baked in to a schema. All right. Now, there's something called the OpenAI schema, which is what this platform uses, which is what OpenAI uses and all these other agentic building platforms use. So if I open it up, I can see more information about that particular protocol. So I can see how the schema should be structured, what should be included, what should not be included. You know, it's kind of like any protocol. A protocol is a way for two systems to communicate with each other that have defined standards, right? So for example, a very common protocol that you and I go through every single day when we go to different countries is passport control. You need to give your passport to someone. They need to verify that your pictures match. They need to verify you by asking you a bunch of other questions. Then they stamp the passport and give it back to you. That's a protocol. That is two systems that understand what they need to do in order to successfully transact with one another. That's what the OpenAPI schema defines as a way to communicate this platform with this API that we have over here. All right. Now, here's the thing. We're dumb. We don't want to go ahead and create that specification ourselves. It takes a long time. You need to make sure you have the right systems and colons and things like that. I'm sure there are resources here. If you really want to go do it, you can do it yourself. But hey, we live in the world of LLMs. We don't need to do that. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to just ask. We are just going to ask ChatGPT to do it for us. Okay. So what we'll do over here, I'll open up a new ChatGPT window. Let me just 1 second. There we go. Okay. And I'll say something like, I have an API that receives or that can be used to get crypto prices. I'll say create the OpenAI Swagger 3.0 specification schema for this API. The API is, and then we'll go ahead and copy and paste this link here and put it here. And it will do that all for us. Okay, there we go. This is what it looks like. You have the info, you have the servers, you have the paths, you have the summary of the path. You have the description of the path. This is what tells the agent what it can do and what it can't do. You have the parameters, examples, USD, things like that. So now all we need to do is just copy this, go over here, and then paste it. Okay. And then we can go ahead and test it. So let's go ahead and click test. We don't have any authorization. We just need the IDs and versus currency. So the IDs again is Bitcoin. Versus currencies is USD. If we click test, it works. So that's good. Let me just change this to Ethereum, for example, and it should still work. And it does. Perfect. So we know that this action now works. All we need to do now is click save. And that is it. That's all we need to do. Now we have our fully functioning tool. And again, the hard part here beforehand, before we were smart, was making this schema. This took forever. You needed to make sure it was right, had examples, things like that. Now, just get ChatGPT to make it for you. It just makes it so much easier, right? Or you can use something called an MCP, which that is very cool, but we'll talk about that later on. Probably not in this course, probably in another course. But anyways, let's click save on this. Now let's actually use this tool that we've made. All right. Let's go ahead and go to our workspace. Let's go to our agent. Okay. And now we're going to add in, let's refresh the page. Sometimes you need to do it. No, don't lie. Let's go to add and we'll go to crypto receiver. Okay. And then we'll click simple price get. That's the action. We'll say here, you are an AI assistant that answers questions. All right. And then I'll say over here, what is the price of Bitcoin in USD? Using simple price get, and it gets me the right answer. Now I'll do it again, but I'll do it in a different way. I'll say, what is the price? I'll say Bitcoin price, please. And I'm in America. Amazing. Amazing. Wow, it changed that quickly. Bitcoin prices changes a lot. Yeah, now it's 84,011. Perfect. And now I can do something else. Let me just Bitcoin price, and I'm in Canada. Okay, perfect. And I know it did correctly because if I go to trace, I can actually see exactly what's being passed in, which is Bitcoin and CAD. Amazing. Amazing. Ah, I love it. Cool. And now let's again combine this with the separate tools. Let's combine this with Slack. All right. So let's let's restart here. And we might need to put in the webhook URL. Yes, we do. So let me find the webhook URL again. I'll copy that, paste that in here, click save. And I'll say something like, get me the price of Ethereum and send it on Slack. It's like an assistant. Hey, assistant, give me the price of Ethereum and let my team know what it is, right? So let me do that. Let me then open up Slack. The current price of Ethereum is blah. Amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Okay, so that's how you create your own custom tools. Again, what you need to do is go to Tools, go to Custom, click Create Custom Tool, and then the most important thing is to find an API that you want the LLM to interact with, and then use ChatGPT to create the OpenAI Swagger specification schema for that particular API. All right.